I saw this post on a site called mumsnet.com, and it's pretty messed up. Not just the post itself, but all the women who ended up encouraging it and normalizing it. And from what I saw, there was one person who pushed back, but that person was evidently censored and then labeled a troll simply because they objected to the sentiment. And apparently that's off limits because, well, this space is only interested in encouraging and coddling women, which really makes it just like the rest of the spaces out there. Husband with terminal cancer, thinking all sorts of awful things that I shouldn't think. 88 replies, husband was diagnosed with stage 4 bowel cancer in July 2024. It had already spread, and despite 10 chemo sessions plus 6 immunotherapy sessions, he is now with palliative care nurses, and we regularly visit our local hospice. My thoughts are that he does not want a long drawn-out death, but he seems to be rallying as a result of the drugs he's on. He is very, very thin, but other than that, he is better on these drugs. Forgot to mention he has a stoma bag. I just feel like my life stopped in July 2024. How selfish of me to think about my life, I know. His small bowel will block at some point, and at that point, it is pretty much game over. My issue is, it's the waiting. The waiting. When is he going to die? When is he going into the hospice? When can we all sort of move on? Don't get me wrong, I adore him, but I'm teetering on the edge every day. Could it be today? Can anyone relate? Thanks. So yeah, there were 88 replies and a bunch of women agreeing with her, saying they relate, saying those are normal feelings, there's no problem, totally okay, all of that sort of encouragement. And then except for the one person who apparently called her out and got banned and then was labeled a troll because they had wrong think. And, in situations like this, someone like me reads it and I think, no, there's an issue there. And I'll express that. And then people will come along and, well, basically gaslight me. And look, especially because it's a woman, they're going to distort and obfuscate and muddy the waters. And what I really want us to talk about here is pointing out the double standard that really makes no sense. Imagine if this was a man saying these things about his dying wife. He would be ripped apart. Oh, but because it's a woman, suddenly we have to really, really consider her feelings and her emotions and how his dying, his currently withering away, his slow death, we got to really consider how it's affecting her and how his suffering impacts her life. And not only that, we have to equally prioritize that. No. Now, I'm not unaware that a situation like this will put a person through a lot of emotions and that could take them to a very dark place. I get that and I understand that. I do. And I also understand how this can cause people to rationalize and justify these types of thoughts. But where that justification really takes root depends on who's saying it, whether it's a man or a woman. Because if it's a man, it's not going to be tolerated. But if it's a woman, again, we have to really equally consider how his dying and his suffering is making her suffer. The whole thing with him dying, her dying husband. He's literally wasting away, fighting for his life. And she's saying, when can I get my life back? When's he going to die? When can we move on so I can get my life back? And I understand these thoughts, may pop into one's mind. Just like when you're driving and you think, I could just yank this steering wheel to the left and it would cause a lot of chaos. But you don't. You ignore it and you look at that thought and you think, what the hell? That's dark. And you move on. So as humans, we have intrusive thoughts like that. The problem begins when you nurture them and when you don't condemn them. The problem is when you go on a forum, you take that thought and you put it out into the world and you seek and then also receive permission for it. Because when you do that, you're inviting others feed into it. And that's exactly what happened. A bunch of women come along, encourage it, normalize it, justify it, and say it's normal. No, that's a wrong thought. That's wrong, and it needs to be recognized as such. Mentally, like she needs to realize how selfish it is and confront it. I would say you need to burn that thought and never think it again. Recognize it's wrong and double down on caring for your husband. That way, you'll actually be able to look in the mirror and be happy with yourself when he's gone. Or at least not hate the person in the reflection looking back at you. Those last moments you have with this dying man, you got to be 100% present, not concerned when you can get your old life back, when you can move on. What you shouldn't be doing is being as selfish as you are and saying things like, I feel like my life stopped back in July 2024. When can I move on? I mean, after all, it's been a whole year. Imagine if this dying man knew that the woman he's loved for a long time was thinking that. Posting this rot online and a bunch of women encouraging her. Again, just imagine if the roles were reversed. A man saying, I feel like my life stopped a year ago when my wife was diagnosed with terminal cancer. When can I move on? When's she going to die? Whew. He would be torn apart by everyone. And on this issue of men being ill and women being most affected, there are these feminist tropes called man cold and man flu.
One of the reasons moms get so mad at their partners when they're sick with a man cold is because that partner feels entitled to rest and recuperation. Whereas when the mother is sick, she gets nothing. No rest, no naps, no time to recoup, no time to go see a doctor. They just keep going. They take care of the kids. They take care of their partner. They keep showing up to work, right? This is where the frustration comes from. My husband and I had a fight, 6 months ago, because he got sick. Every single time the kids got sick this winter, he was sick. And he was napping on the couch, and he was sleeping in late, and whatever it is. And he's like, you're mad at me for being sick. And I had to say, I'm not mad at you for being sick. I'm mad that you get the luxury of getting better. I'm mad that you get the luxury of laying on this couch, taking a nap while the kids all run around, and I take care of them. And what's going to happen is you're going to go back to work. And when I'm sick, I'm still doing all the same things. I don't get to...
A utility lineman, by the way.
Nap. I don't get to rest and sleep in. I don't get to just lounge on the couch and take a day to myself. I don't get that luxury. Men feel entitled to rest and recuperation. Women feel compelled to continue taking care of everyone. And not only that, if you're a working parent, you feel as though you can't take PTO. I was so sick a month ago.
So talk about a false premise. Every major data set shows that women take more sick days and longer absences while men underreport illness and delay care. But this whole man cold and man flu, the goal of calling it that is to undermine the symptoms and accuse him of overreacting and whining and behaving like a little baby. While at the same time, it's also conveying this message that women are superior at dealing with illness, that they're tougher, they're more resilient, and men are just weak complainers. But the reality is, if a man gets a cold and a woman gets a cold, and the man seems to be suffering more, chances are he actually is. Because sex-based immune differences are real. Estrogen and progesterone strengthen antiviral immunity, while testosterone suppresses certain inflammatory and antibody responses. So there's real evidence showing that on average, men can experience more intense or longer lasting symptoms from certain respiratory infections. Men are also hospitalized and die from the flu slightly more often than women, and the same age range. But what you need to realize is that feminists have taken this, sex-based immune difference and turned it into a trope. One that belittles men and glorifies women as stoic martyrs. And this woman says one of the reasons moms get so mad at their partners when they're sick with a man cold is because that partner feels entitled to rest and recuperation. She literally says women get mad that men feel they ought to rest and recuperate when they're sick. And she says that when the mother is sick, she gets nothing. No rest, no naps, no time to recoup, no time to go see a doctor. They just keep going. They take care of the kids and they take care of their partner. They keep showing up to work. Right? That's literally what she says. Right? No, it's not right. This entire video, again, is based on false premises. Women take more sick days and longer absences. There's nothing concrete to suggest that when women are sick, their husbands don't support them or allow them to rest, nap, or recover. Households are not forbidding women to rest. Women also go to the doctor more than men. This is all just a feminist fantasy. She says, I'm not mad you're sick. I'm mad you get the luxury of getting better. What a psycho. She's angry that he's healing because she has a victim complex and is convinced women can't rest when they're sick.
A month and a half ago. So sick. Did I take PTO? No, because I don't have the PTO to take for myself. If I take the PTO, then what happens when my kids are sick? And I have 4 kids, and they're sick all the time. So what is the alternative for me? Right? This is why women get mad at their partners for the man cold. It's not that we don't want you to rest and recuperate. What we want is equal opportunity to do that when we're sick. And so really what it is probably resentment, right? In those moments, we're resenting our partner. We're looking at them napping and saying, oh my God, the audacity that he has to rest in front of me when I've never been given the opportunity to rest. I think this is true of having a newborn, right? Like so many dads feel like it's fine to just take a nap whenever they want, but the moms never do that. We never just take a nap. We never just fall asleep on the couch, right? Like we would never, because then who's caring for the child? This is what it is. It's resentment. That's what's coming forward in these scenarios. So if you are a husband and you're wondering why your wife is pissed because you're sick, she's not mad that you're sick. She's mad that when she's sick, nobody steps up for her. So while you are sick and you would like some rest, make sure you're communicating with her because she's inevitably going to get what you have. It's kind of how it works, right? So when she has that, allow her to rest and recuperate. Support her the way she supports you and your children. That's all they want.
First off, I would like to send my condolences to this woman's husband. I mean, what a life of misery that guy's living. Can you imagine the emotional vomit that he has to endure, the nagging this guy has to endure? Truly, I'm so sorry. What a miserable life. But look, if you refuse to rest, if you refuse to take a step back when you're sick, that's no one's fault but your own. And it's actually a dumb thing to do because it's going to take longer to recover. These feminists are so full of it, obsessed with being oppressed. So let me get this straight. Instead of calling into her, apparent workplace, which honestly I'm skeptical even exists, she continues to go to work and risking everybody else around her getting sick. Like you can still call in sick even if you don't take PTO. And somehow that's everybody else's fault except your own. You're choosing not to use your PTO. And also, again, let's remember who we're talking about here. Her husband is a utility lineman. He's not sitting behind a computer sending emails. If he's sick, he really can't do his job. So she's mad that a utility lineman rests and doesn't go to work when he's sick. She resents him for having the nerve to rest because she's too wrapped up in her own identity as the overburdened mother to admit she could do the same. This entire thing is just seething bitterness directed at her husband because that's what it's really about. She's really only drawing from her experience with her husband. We're only talking about her and her relationship with her husband. That's really it. Everything else she said has no evidence, no logic. She's just mad that, again, her lineman husband dared to stop moving when he was sick. She says women never take a nap. We would never, because then who's caring for the child? I don't know, maybe the father? Are you a single mom? I'm confused. Or are you a stay-at-home mom and dad's out working? So if you're a husband wondering why your wife is pissed when you're sick, well, she's not mad that you're sick. She's mad that when she's sick, nobody steps up for her. Yet again, man sick, woman most affected. What an insufferable woman. Spiteful, bitter, resentful, scornful. Symptom shock. Dad, 46, who exaggerated man flu symptoms, left fighting for life with sepsis, pneumonia, and killer cancer. When Clint Neal developed a cough, cold, and fatigue, he shrugged it off as a bit of a man flu, but the dad of one almost died when his symptoms turned out to be aggressive blood cancer. Clint, 46, of Burton Upton Trent staffs fell poorly in October last year, but thought he had a bout of seasonal flu, as well as brushing it off as man flu. He thought his illness had come about because it was just that time of year. But over the next 2 weeks, Clint's condition began to deteriorate, and he was rushed to an emergency doctor by his wife, Joanne, 48, who also probably told him it was the man flu. He was then sent to A&E at Burton Hospital in Staffordshire, where tests determined he had deadly acute myeloid leukemia. Next one, neighbor of dying man tells coroner court paramedic repeatedly told patient he was overreacting with the man flu before he died. The neighbor of a man who died at home with pneumonia said a paramedic on scene repeatedly said the man was overreacting with the man flu and needed to behave in the lead up to his death. A father of two died after seeking help from emergency several times during the pandemic. Let's see here. Irma Cruz told the court on Friday she went around to her neighbor's house, the house of the Chadas, on April 21 when a female and male ambulance crew attended, telling the court the male officer repeatedly stressed that Mr. Chada was overreacting with the man flu and was being a naughty boy that needed to behave. I felt like the male paramedic, wanted his opinion registered, she said. It was hard for me to listen to. Ms. Cruz said Mr. Chada at the time was lying down and looked incoherent, weak, and could barely keep his eyes open. Well, there you go. The neighbor said it was a battle to convince the crew to take him to the hospital. The male paramedic did say to me in a more quiet voice, I suppose we also need to consider the cultural aspect. Weird. After the decision was made, Miss Cruz said after the decision was made to bring him to the Lyle McKeown Hospital. Miss Cruz told the court she was not sure what the paramedic meant by that and did not want to question him further in front of this man's wife. Under cross-examination by counsel for one of the paramedics, Miss Cruz was asked whether she thought the male paramedic was joking. No, absolutely not. There was nothing to smile about that night. The following night, Miss Cruz says she got a call from Mrs. Chada in the early hours of the morning when she ran into the house to see Mr. Chada being resuscitated. The paramedics insisted the night before that there was nothing wrong with him. He just had a man flu. Very next day, he's dead. The inquest continues. So a medical professional actually allowed feminist tropes to affect the quality of his care. Oh, he's just overreacting because he's a man, and this is what they do when they're sick. And this type of stuff is cancer. It really is. It's absurd. The things feminists come up with to belittle and shame men, it's just never ending. They are relentless. And until people start taking this seriously, until they recognize what this type of ideology really is and how detrimental it is to nations, we're going to keep watching it erode society from the inside out.